Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Week 14 episode of Stacking the Box. Myself, Iain MacMillan, joined once again Sterling Holmes at Homestretch KC. Got a lot to talk about this week, including a very tight MVP race, a very tight playoff race, and whether or not a couple of teams might be fraudulent. Sterling, I might be looking at your Chiefs. Maybe. But before we get into the show here today, and also Sterling still alive in Survivor. So I won't be able to buy Christmas gifts this year for any of my family because all my Christmas gift money is going to go to Sterling because he's going to end up winning this Survivor thing. Unbelievable. Before we get into the show, though, Stacking the Box is partnering with Sleeper Daily Fantasy to give new users a first deposit match up to $100. Make sure to use our code FANSIDED2. That is FANSIDED and then the number 2 when signing up to receive your deposit match. Please remember to always game responsibly. And you can scan the QR code on the screen to see if you qualify. So it's a good reason to check us out on YouTube. And if you are watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. You can go ahead and just scan the QR code there to take advantage of this promo. Sleeper Daily Fantasy. Sterling, what's going on?
Oh, man. What isn't going on? Yeah. No, things are good, man. I'm excited to be here with you to talk some football. This was a wild week.
Yep.
Backup city, I think Chad Henne, Chase Daniel, Blaine Gabbert, Tyrod Taylor, they should all be thrilled right now. It's the season of backup quarterbacks. It's just too bad those 4 guys specifically aren't in it. But this is their dream right now. But yet the football is still being played at a high level, even with some of these backup dudes in there.
Yeah, last night, by the end of the game, we were treated to Jake Browning against CJ Beathard. What a treat as the Bengals keep their playoff hopes alive. And maybe the Jaguar season might be over, depending on this Trevor Lawrence injury. We'll get into that a little bit. But Sterling, as always, we're going to start with the biggest winners and losers from Week 13. Start us off. Who is your biggest winner?
I got 2 here. I want to start with Jake Browning because after last night's performance, I thought that was just a phenomenal game from him. Great game plan from the head coach and the Bengals in general, right? Early on in the game, check it down. Let him get into a rhythm. And then it opened up. Obviously, he started using Jamar Chase downfield. He started using T. Higgins downfield, Tyler Boyd, Trenton Irwin. I was very impressed with the game plan, and he delivered. He was incredible. Quarterback controversy going on in Cincinnati now. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. I'm kidding, but still, that was a great performance from Jake Browning. And then for me, the team is the Packers. Packers have been on a heater. Jordan Love looks like he figured something out. The Chiefs defense has been incredible all season long. He's been about the only dude to crack the case against this Chiefs defense. He was a great game plan, moved the ball efficiently, took care of the football most importantly. I think the Packers right now, you'd be feeling pretty good, especially in regards to making the playoffs now because their schedule lightens up tremendously after that Chiefs game.
Yes, I believe the Packers actually have the easiest remaining schedule based on opponent win percentage the rest of the way here. If not the easiest, the second easiest. We're going to talk with the Packers a little bit later in the show, so I'll save my thoughts with them for now. But Jake Browning, do you think it's sustainable? Or do you think last night was just kind of a one-time thing?
Well, I don't think he's going to do, 360 and all that stuff every single game, but there was nothing that I saw that showed me that, okay, this was just a one-off. Like, you look at how he got it done. It was efficient. It wasn't, obviously, 70 yards were on a Jamar Chase catch and run. But outside of that, he was efficient, got the ball out on time into the right spot, and the receivers made plays. I was very enthused by Jake Browning.
And it's not like the Jaguars defense is a bad defense either. Probably an above average, borderline good defense heading into last night's game. So it's not like he did that against one of the worst defenses in the NFL either. So the Bengals all of a sudden back to 6-6 in that group of 3 teams at 6-6. And then there's a huge group in front of them at 7-5. So AFC playoff race extremely tight heading down the stretch. And the Bengals kind of kept their hopes alive by winning that game last night. My biggest winner are the 49ers, Lions, and Cowboys. That group of the kind of top tier teams not named the Eagles in the NFC, because with the Eagles all of a sudden losing to the 49ers and losing in a big way, all of a sudden the number 1 seed in the NFC kind of opens up. The NFC East kind of opens up. If the Cowboys beat the Eagles this week, they're both going to be sitting at 10-3 heading into the final 4 games of the season. So all of a sudden where the Eagles kind of look like the kings of the NFC, and they'd have the number 1 seed locked up. They don't have the number 1 seed. They don't even really have the division lead locked up. And the rest of their schedule, not exactly easy. Now, to be fair, the Cowboys schedule is tough down the stretch as well. But the rest of the NFC, or at least the contenders in the NFC, got to be pretty happy with this past week's results.
Biggest loser for me. Again, I got two here. The Jags, because they had a chance to really cement their season, right? Moving to 9-3. You're right there, 1 or 2 in the AFC picture. You're looking good. You lose to a backup quarterback. And now you don't even have the AFC South locked up because the feisty Texans are right there knocking at the door. And not only that, you might have lost Trevor Lawrence for an extended period of time. Now, initial reports sound slightly promising, right? Sounds like no broken bone, which is obviously the worry when you see a guy step up, fall immediately down, and then throw his helmet down in disgust. But still, not a good situation for the Jacksonville Jaguars and what was a fairly wide open AFC. And then the refs, man. The refs. Continuously, and I feel like we say it every single week. I feel like we say it every single year. And this wasn't even just in the Chiefs' favor or against the Chiefs in this one. If you watch the end of that game, Packers-Chiefs, there were 4 blown calls on that final drive. 4. 2 went in favor of Kansas City, 2 went against.
Yeah.
At some point, you're just sitting here going, what are we doing here, guys? Are we just randomly calling stuff? I also have an issue with holds in the NFL. I'm convinced if you are a defensive lineman and you just throw your one arm up in the air like this, you will automatically get a hold call. If you try and mind your business, even if you get held to oblivion, well, you didn't throw your hand up there. We're not going to call it. Like, I just have a issue with players almost influencing the refs. The refs have no idea what's going on. This has become too much of a talking point in a season where it should be about football, should be about betting, but instead we're talking about the refs.
Yeah, I agree, Sterling. That's a great point, actually, which is something I have noticed this year specifically, is the increase in refs reacting to players reacting. If a defensive lineman puts his hands up as if he's being held, almost every time we'll get a flag. If an offensive player puts his hands up as if the defensive player, had pass interference on him, they throw the flag. Sometimes even when like a defensive lineman before the snap will stand up and point at the offensive lineman as if he twitched, and sometimes that gets a flag for a false start as well. It is a lot of players reacting to try to get the refs to throw flags, and it's working more often than not, which is extremely concerning. It's almost as if the refs are so scared to not call a penalty that they're kind of over calling penalties.
Yeah, 100%.
This game was on Thursday night, so now we've kind of forgot about it, but the Seahawks Cowboys game was a flag every play. 19 total penalties accepted, 130 yards for penalties for the Seahawks, 127 total penalty yards for the Cowboys. We can't have that. We can't have 19 flags thrown in a game.
No.
And actually more flags were thrown than it's 19 penalties accepted in a game. That's insane. That ruins the product of football.
Yeah.
My biggest loser is anyone who sat through that Falcons-Jets game at MetLife Stadium, myself included. What a miserable experience that was. Thank God that the Falcons ended up winning the game, so there was a little bit of a redeeming factor, but the stadium was like maybe 40% full. It rained from start to finish. I did buy a very fancy poncho that I wore to the stadium, but also it was cold, so I had my winter jacket on underneath it. I was all bundled up. I didn't want to move. Also, I guess, is this a New Jersey law? They stopped selling beer at halftime. Like, I thought it was fourth quarter they stopped selling beer, but halftime. I tried to get a beer at halftime. I couldn't.
Brutal, especially for that game. You think they would start busting out the liquor as well. Like, all right, not only are you now getting beer into the fourth quarter, you're getting a pounder of beer as well as a shot of Jack Daniels. Like that seems like that would have been the move there.
Yeah, my plan was to drink my way through the game and worked up till halftime. Yeah, halftime, try to get a drink. No alcohol after halftime. And I got a seat right in front of one of the 2 end zones. And of course, all the action was at the other end of the field the entire game, and the 1 touchdown was scored in the other end zone as well.
Oh yeah, the Falcons' third string tight end, because again, why get Kyle Pitts involved when you can use your third string tight end now?
Yeah, but a win is a win is a win is a win. We are now sole possession of first place in the NFC South. But that was, and also on the way home back to Manhattan, not exactly easy to get to MetLife Stadium. Got to take a couple trains. One of the trains broke down, so I just sat on a train. It should have been about a 40-minute trip for me to get back home. Between 40 minutes and an hour, it took me about 2.5 hours to get back home.
Are you sure it was the train or not the Jets' offense?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, probably a mix of both. So that's my biggest loser of the week. Anyone, including myself, who sat through that game in the rain on Sunday. Top story. MVP race is heating up. It seems like we talk about the MVP race on an almost weekly basis on the show, but for good reason, because we are now week 14 in the NFL, and there are like 6-7 guys who can still win MVP. Usually by this point of the season, we have a pretty good idea who's going to win it. If not, it's down to like 2 or 3 guys. There's like 7 or 8 guys who can still win it. Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy are the co-favorites right now at 3-1 to win NFL MVP. Sterling, your thoughts on this? Can Dak Prescott win MVP?
I think he can. This is tough, man. I mean, I actually tried saying Dak Prescott needs more credit for winning MVP this season, which is weird for me to say because I've always been he's not a huge needle mover to me personally, but he's been great this year. Like, there's no denying how good he has been this season. The issue is they haven't really beaten any good teams.
Right.
And I wonder how much, and again, I've said it every single week, and I'll say it again, they'll be up 3 scores late in the fourth quarter, and they're running play action for a bomb to CeeDee Lamb. Like, when they beat teams, they're not running the clock out. They're trying to score more and almost pad those stats. I wonder how much of that will get held against him. Like Brock Purdy on the other side of things, you don't see the Niners do that. When they get up, what happens? They just run the football. They run the clock out. They're very efficient. And that's what it comes down to is I know Hunter's going to be pissed at me when I say it, but how much does Brock Purdy really move the needle? I think if you take Dak Prescott out of the Cowboys system, they take a massive step back. You put Brock Purdy out of the Niners system, how many quarterbacks could do a similar thing that he does? I think your answer is a decent amount.
Yeah, it's an argument we've had several times on the show. We don't need to revisit that. But I will say Brock Purdy does lead in some stats, but Dak Prescott's right there. And the Cowboys do have a little bit more of a difficult schedule down the stretch, but really the teams that the Cowboys play down the stretch are kind of all teams who have good offenses but bad defenses, like the Eagles this week, whose defense is atrocious. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Bills, Dolphins, Lions. Like, yeah, they have tough games down the stretch, but none of them are really good defenses. They're all teams that are more offensive based. So Dak Prescott's going to end the year with a lot of good numbers. Do you think the fact that he plays on the Cowboys, obviously America's team, is going to play any level of impact at all on the voters and who they vote for?
It's a good question. First off, Justin, I will answer your question in just a moment there. That's a good question, man. Again, I think Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. I think he's better. Brock Purdy's better than the people who think he does nothing think he is, but I don't quite think he's as great as the Brock Purdy for MVP folks like Hunter thinks he is. Like, I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's a really good quarterback. But if it were my choice, is he more important to that team than Christian McCaffrey?
Right.
I mean, seriously, is he more important than Christian McCaffrey?
Important? No. No, I don't think so. But if it's a quarterback award, he has the best quarterback numbers.
Agreed. But again, I don't. My main
leads
argument,
the NFL in QBR, leads the NFL in quarterback rating, leads the NFL by a wide margin in yards per throw, 9.6. The next closest is 8.6. Leads the NFL in completion percentage.
My main argument is I don't think it should be a quarterback award, especially this season. For a guy like me who's very analytical in a season where I think quarterback play has been down for the most part overall. Again, I think Brock Purdy should be way ahead of Lamar Jackson, way ahead of Patrick Mahomes, way ahead of Jalen Hurts, way ahead of Tua Tagovailoa, right? Because the same argument for Tua is the same one I use against Brock Purdy, right? I think Tyreek Hill moves the needle way more than Tua Tagovailoa, right?
Yes.
I think we can all agree there. So for me, what it comes down to is in a season where I know it's traditionally a quarterback award, with no quarterback necessarily moving the needle in my eyes, I'm going a little outside the box, and I'm going with Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek Hill's been historical this season. That's the way I'm going.
Yeah, I want to talk with Tyreek Hill. Why don't you address Justin's question there first? What's your confidence level in Browning and the Bengals moving forward? 6-6, obviously still in the thick of the playoff hunt. Can he do enough to lead the Bengals at least to the playoffs.
I'll have to look at the rest of their schedule. They still have to play the Chiefs. They still have a couple of tough games left. Obviously, we know how difficult the AFC North is in general. But I was impressed last night with Justin Browning, or Jake Browning. Sorry, I can't even get his name right. With Jay Browning. I mean, again, we talked about it. When you have great weapons and the offensive line holds up like it did, it wasn't like he had to score 17 points to win that game because the defense was electric. He had to put up 34 to get it done, but he got it done. He was calm. He was cool. He was collected. I was impressed with Browning in that game. And I do think there's a outside chance they can still keep it together. Again, I wouldn't put money on it, but I think there's an outside chance they can still keep it together.
Bengals close their season off against Colts. They're a 1-point underdog at home to the Colts this week. And then they have the Vikings, Steelers, Chiefs, Browns. So I would say all winnable games. Chiefs likely going to be a loss. The other ones are all going to be like the point spread for all of them is going to be 3 points or less. Like I said, 1-point underdog to the Colts against the Vikings, probably 2-point underdog maybe. Steelers going to be close depending on Kenny Pickett's status. Going to be significant underdogs to the Chiefs, especially on the road. And then last game of the season against the Browns, going to be close as well. So, Bengals are going to be an interesting team down the stretch.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill, you did mention him. You've talked about him all season. You think he deserves to be MVP. This is the first time this week that we actually saw the MVP odds. If you look at betting odds as a predictor of who's going to win the award, move in Tyreek Hill's favor. Now, he's still 15-1. So there are a handful of quarterbacks. If you're watching this on YouTube, you see the list down there at the bottom of the screen, scrolling across it. But after the big names, after the Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Tua, Tyreek Hill coming in at 15-1, where all season he was hanging around 30-1, 50-1. So we did see some significant odds move in his favor, 15-1, still a bit of a long shot. But at least now the betting market thinks he's in the conversation. So maybe now is the time to take a look at betting on Tyreek Hill, because if he breaks 2,000 receiving yards, which I believe he's well on pace to do, that breaking that mark's going to play a big role. Him finishing with 2,001 yards is significantly different from him finishing with 1,999. Even though it's a 2-yard difference, that milestone of 2,000 yards is going to play a big role, especially if these quarterbacks just kind of play middling down the stretch. Now, one of these quarterbacks, if Brock Purdy or Dak just lights it up the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, they're probably going to win it. But if they have a good game, then a bad game, then an average game, it opens it up for Tyreek Hill. And they might, at the end of the season, the voters might just have no choice but to give it to the guy who set the single season record for receiving yards in Tyreek Hill.
But see, and even that, I don't like again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think you're using the argument of the voters where you seem to go, we have no choice but to give it to a non-quarterback. It is a choice. You're giving it to who moved the needle the most. It's Tyreek Hill. He's doing something historic. It's never been done before. How is that not deserving of the most valuable player? It's been wild. The fact that he's behind Tua makes zero sense to me. Zero sense to me. I mean, seriously, you take him off that team and you're putting Braxton Berrios as the wide receiver 2 and move Jalen Waddle to wide receiver 1. You're telling me Tua's numbers are going to be similar? They wouldn't even be close. That is Tyreek Hill. He's the difference maker on that team. Obviously, I'm beating a dead horse here, but that's my vote for sure is Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, he is currently on pace to finish with 2,097 yards, or if you round up, 2,098 yards on the season. He is also, this is worth noting, leading the NFL in receiving touchdowns by 2 as well. So it's not just yards, it is touchdowns as well. Now he is 9 receptions behind Keenan Allen for the most receptions in the NFL, but leading by a wide margin in yards, leading by 2 in touchdowns. It's hard to argue against Tyreek Hill winning it.
Yeah. Who would you vote for? I've told you who I'm voting for.
I think I would vote Tyreek Hill right now. I'm personally rooting for Brock Purdy because I bet Brock Purdy a significant sum of money at 14-1. So I'll retire and be rich if Brock Purdy wins MVP. But if I had a vote right now, I think I'd vote Tyreek Hill.
That's how you get out of the you're lost to me in Survivor.
Yes, correct. I
That's
need
all
Brock
it
Purdy to win MVP so I can pay up on this survivor pool. Yes, the money will just go in one hand, out the other. Mike says, I can't believe teams still don't put a safety on top of Hill. Yeah, someone in the media asked Tyreek Hill about that this week. And he was like, he said something like, thank you to the teams for disrespecting me or something like that, because it's just opening things up for him. But I mean, even if they put a safety on top, I don't think it matters most of the time.
It really doesn't matter. This is the best he has looked. Like,
Yeah.
from a Chiefs fan who saw him here for so long, this is the best he's looked. His route running seems crisper. He's tracking the ball even better, right? Just some of those over-the-shoulder catches, he looks way smoother on. The speed and acceleration is there. It's wild to think a guy as athletic as he is, in the age that he is, where you normally see the natural decline of an NFL wide receiver, he is somehow still getting better. He's always had great football IQ too. Just his football IQ is through the roof. It's very impressive.
This is the first time in a long time we're watching Tyreek Hill play football. It looks like I'm watching like a high school football tape on YouTube, where it's like one guy who's like going to get like 50 Division I scholarship offers, and he's playing in like a random, high school team in like Iowa or something. He's clearly the best player on the field. That's what Tyreek Hill looks like, and he's doing it on an NFL field, because like he'll catch a ball and there'll be like defenders on either side, and he's so fast, like he's able to just burst right through, which like you usually see when you're watching like high school football. It's insane. So yeah, I'd give Tyreek Hill my vote. We'll see if his odds continue to move in his direction here in the final stretch of the season. For what it's worth, Christian McCaffrey 30-1, so he's technically still in the mix to win MVP, but I don't think he's quite done enough this season. In terms of most valuable player, like if you use it by definition, I think Chris McCaffrey has a great argument, but his actual stats, like yards per carry kind of deal, not quite up to an MVP level. But he just does it all, which is the argument you can make for him. Do you think the team's final record plays a role in winning MVP? Like, do you think, depending on what team finishes with the 1 seed in the respective conference, does that play a role at all in MVP?
I think it does. I don't know how much it should. Like, I go back and forth on it, right? Because obviously that means your team's great, but why are you penalizing guys? And I know I've done it before. Like people penalize Mahomes for having Kelsey and Tyreek Hill when he was here, right? And I kind of am doing it myself when I'm penalizing, to an extent, Brock Purdy for having great weapons. It's tough for me to say most valuable player when, if you took, for example, let's say CJ Stroud off of the Texans, you put Davis Mills there. We saw what that team looks like.
Right.
Like, it's a very difficult conversation to have. But again, how much do you penalize a guy for winning? He's doing what he's supposed to do. What do you want him to do? Throw to dudes not named Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey? Like, it's a very fine line. But I do think record plays a part in this. But how much, I think that does remain to be seen.
We brought up the Packers earlier, and I think the Packers, if there was an award given out at this point of the season, or even at the end of the season, for most improved team, and I'm not talking about most improved from last year to this year, I'm talking about most improved from September to now, it's the Green Bay Packers by far. They went from looking like a below average team at the start of the year. I mean, the Falcons beat them. That's not a good sign. I think that at one point they lost like 4 or 5 games in a row, to now all of a sudden the Packers look like a legitimately good football team. Not a great football team. They're not a Super Bowl contender, but they look like a good football team that just beat the defending champs. To be fair, Jordan Love, most improved player on the most improved team. He looks like a completely different quarterback out there on the field. Early in the season, he looked raw. He made a lot of dumb mistakes. He looked like he wasn't calm in the pocket. Now he's doing all the right things. He's making the right decisions. He's using his feet not only just to run, but using his feet to buy time for his receivers to get open. He looks calm in the pocket. He's making good throws. He's taking some shots when he has the chance to. What are your thoughts on the Packers right now? Do you think they're a legitimate playoff team? They're now favored to make the playoffs. I think they're going to be in the playoffs no matter what. And what are your thoughts on Jordan Love?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with Jordan Love. He started off this season with 50% completion percentage. We saw some of the box score numbers, right? We saw some of the yards and the touchdowns. We're like, wow, that's impressive. But it was not sustainable when you are not completing at least 60%, 65% of your passes. Well, then you see after that stretch where it caught up to him, right? It was unsustainable, as we mentioned. And then all of a sudden the completion percentage went up. He started taking care of the football more. he stopped trying to play hero ball, if you will. I know it's tough for a lot of these young guys. I know he's not necessarily that young because he's sat behind Rodgers and stuff for a few years now, but it's very difficult, I think, for guys who were always superstars growing up, high school, college. They're so used to making those throws because it works when you do that in high school and in college. But the NFL is a different animal. It's a different beast. You have to almost tone back just a little bit. Guys are quicker, faster, better reads. Defenses are now trying to confuse you. So I think Jordan Love had to go through some growing pains there, even though it is his 4th season in the NFL, but it's his first year really starting. And we're seeing the results. I think he's a really, really good quarterback. I think there's a lot of talent there. I think he is going to be the guy for Green Bay for a long time. Now, I don't think he's going to be Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers, but I think he's going to be a very, very good quarterback for a very long time. That is a huge step in the right direction for a organization, for a team. Now, as far as the team in general, the defense has had a ton of injuries, but Rashawn Gary's been outstanding. Obviously, Jair Alexander's been injured. Secondary has been banged up all season long, but somehow they've gotten better. I know everyone's Barry fired as a defensive corner because he's so bland, but for some reason, the injuries have actually made his system work better, which is a little interesting to say. They're starting to peak at the right time. Once they get Aaron Jones back, once A.J. Dillon gets fully healthy, the offensive line's been banged up, moving in and out. In game, they're having different tackles, different guards take one series on, one series off. Once they get more continuity, this is in my opinion, a really good NFC team.
Yeah, I am glad, just to go back to Jordan Love, you brought up completion percentage, because that was my big knock on him early in the year, because early in the year, he was getting the yards, he was getting the touchdowns, but I was telling people, we got to start betting against this team, because early in the year, his completion percentage, 55.6, 56%, 50%, 53.3, and now you look at his recent starts, 69.4, 68.8, 67.5, 76.9 against the Rams. The numbers in terms of yards and touchdowns are still there, but now we're seeing the difference in completion percentage, which is huge, because that's what's going to convert third downs into first downs. That's what's going to keep your offense on the field. That's what's going to be able to convert, red zone trips to touchdowns. So Packers have been very impressive. It is not fair that they have gone from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to another good quarterback. At least give us a couple years where they have a bad quarterback. No, must be nice, Packers fans. Speaking of the Packers, let's talk about the team they just beat. Are the Chiefs frauds?
No.
Hold on. I will say last week, if you remember, I said I like the Chiefs or the Packers to cover, and I also said I wouldn't be surprised if they beat the Chiefs. And what'd you say?
I said that's laughable.
I said that's not. You said not a chance.
Well, and the reason was I thought it was a bad matchup for the Packers. I didn't say the Packers were a bad team. I said it was a bad matchup. Same reason why I said the Eagles were going to get crushed by the Niners, because it's a bad matchup. Not that they're a bad team. It's a bad matchup. I was wrong. No quarterback has done this against the Chiefs defense all season long.
Yes,
now, again, I will say injuries are no excuse, because injuries happen in the NFL. You have to get through it, next man up. The Chiefs were now on their 3rd play caller on defense, because obviously no Nick Bolton, which they knew, so Drew Tranquil was there. Well, he got injured very early because of Quadzilla A.J. Dillon getting it to the back of his dome. He was concussed. So then Jack Conklin, who doesn't play at all, had to come in, and now he is the play caller. And the Green Bay Packers took advantage of it. There were times on that huge run, was it by Tucker? It's 30 yards, where he's trying to communicate to Justin Reed, and they're not on the same page because Conklin doesn't know what's going on. I think he actually played a pretty good game, all things being considered, but it wasn't enough when you are all of a sudden forced into that role. You don't have a whole week to get prepared. You didn't have a whole quarter to get prepared. You're now thrust into it mid-game, and I think it was just too much to overcome. Again, the Packers played great. Tip your cap, man. The Chiefs aren't frauds. The offense isn't great, but the defense is still legitimately good. They're going to get some reinforcements back. They're wide receivers. Those are the frauds.
Well, that's part of the issue, though. If you don't have wide receivers, it's hard. It's going to be hard to beat elite teams now, potentially on the road in the playoffs. Are you concerned?
Oh, yeah. I don't disagree with that, but that doesn't mean they're frauds.
No, you're right. I just wanted to use the word fraud just to get you going a little bit. I don't think they are frauds, but they're in trouble.
Yeah, I think they're still a really good team. that has a fatal flaw, which pretty much every single team in the NFL right now has a fatal flaw. The only team that really doesn't is the 49ers.
I would say the Ravens possibly too, although the Ravens don't really have good wide receivers either. Okay. So nervous, but you're not out on the Chiefs yet.
No. I lived through the Tyler Palco and Tyler Thigpen and Damon Heward and the emergence of Matt Castle and the 2 games of Kyle Orton era. Okay, we're chilling. 8-4, and you're still going to win the AFC West. It's okay.
All right. I like it. That is true. They have who is the closest in the AFC West right now? The Broncos.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Broncos.
6-6. Chiefs only have 2 more wins than the Atlanta Falcons. Fact.
Yeah, schedules have been very similar too.
Yeah, very similar. Correct. Are the Eagles frauds?
No.
Yes, they are. The
They're
Eagles
not.
are frauds. The Eagles are frauds. I've been on the Eagles have been frauds train for a while now, and this past week showed it. The Eagles defense is atrocious, and they keep getting worse on a weekly basis. Let me look at some numbers here for the Eagles defense. The Eagles, because their offense is still good. The Eagles 24th in opponent yards per play, 27th in opponent EPA per play, 20th in opponent success rate, and the worst stat, which is going to kill the Eagles. This is why they're not going to win the Super Bowl. Dead last in third down defense.
Yeah.
They're worse than any other team on defense on third down. Worse than the Cardinals, worse than the Giants. You name a team, dead last is dead last. Dead last in opponent third down conversion rate. Teams are converting 47.27% of third downs against them. That's not a winning formula.
Can I pose something to you, Ian?
Yes.
Again, because I'm with you. The defense has been atrocious, and you're looking at it going, well, why? Look at all the talent. I mean, there is so much talent on that defense. It's crazy, right? You know, sure. Darius Slay's obviously older. James Bradbury's obviously older. I get that stuff. And maybe they did fall off. But they've had a lot of injuries. Their slot cornerback situation is not ideal. Avonte Maddox got injured. They're on like their 3rd or 4th now. Slot corner, undrafted dudes. I get it. But there's still a ton of talent on that defense overall. How much of it is, A, they lost their defensive coordinator, right? He's gone. Was it losing him? And how much of it is they still have a lot of talent and they're trying to adjust, and maybe as the season ends up, the last couple of weeks, maybe even into the playoffs, there's still a chance with that talent, with them finally starting to click with a new defensive coordinator and scheme, they get right.
I don't think they will, because they're trending in the wrong direction. For the majority of the season, they are an average defense. Over the past few weeks, they've now turned into a bad defense.
Sure.
And we're 13 weeks into the season.
Correct. Yeah.
We've seen enough, and now maybe if they started off the season as a bad defense and they've turned it into an average defense, they're trending in the right direction, sure, but they're trending in the wrong direction. It's not good.
Yeah. No, I'm not disagreeing. I just think it's an interesting conversation to have, because I do think there's still a lot of talent. If you looked at that team, you're sitting here going, wow, that's a lot of dudes. But then you do have to remember, again, losing your DC, who's been there a while, who had one of the better defenses in the NFL last year, that is a huge loss.
Yeah, I think that's got to be the biggest thing. It's got to be their defensive coordinator not being there. Justin asked Sterling, do you think KT, I'm guessing that's Kadarius Toney, will finally get to play wide receiver instead of being a gadget guy?
I would hope so, because I'm irate every single week that he is somehow used as a little Debo Samuel, and they're like, yeah, we're trying to keep him healthy. Then why the bleep are you running the ball with him? Like, why are you putting him in situations to take more unnecessary hits, more physical hits, than just put him at wide receiver? When he's at wide receiver, the only guy that hurts him is him, because his knees are like jello and he's out there trying to make some dudes miss. When was the last time you've seen him at wide receiver just get popped? Guys don't get a good, clean shot on him. I would love to see more Toney at wide receiver. I hate the thought process of, yeah, well, MVS is a veteran. He knows where to be. Well, clearly he doesn't. He has zero idea where to be. He doesn't come back to the ball. He has no idea where the ball's. The opposite of Tyreek Hill. He somehow goes into the safety help when there's a wide open field to the left of him. It's asinine. Toney can do the same thing. Yes, Justin, I would love to see more Kadarius Toney. Will we see more of him? Probably not, knowing how the Chiefs operate.
Then I got one last question for you. I'm curious your take on this, and then we're going to move on to previewing Week 14 here. But if you look at the betting odds to win the Super Bowl, there is clearly a first tier of teams and then a second tier of teams. First tier, you have the 49ers, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Dolphins, and the Cowboys. Then there was a large gap, and then there was a second tier of teams. Second tier would include, I guess, Lions, Jaguars, Bills, and then there's kind of a third tier of Texans, Browns, Packers, Falcons. Falcons are listed because they're probably going to win the NFC South. That's the only reason why they're listed. If you were to pick a team from that second and third tier to win the Super Bowl, which team would you go with?
Ooh, it's between, for me, the Lions and the Bills.
No faith in your Texans.
Not this year. Again, I'm very high on the Texans. I was very high, but I'm trying to be a realist here, right? I'm trying to be a realist. I think the AFC is a lot harder overall. I think it's a lot when you're playing a lot of teams who've had a lot of playoff experience, if not success, a lot of playoffs experience, with the Chiefs, even with the Ravens, they get there every single year. If the Bills make it, I still think the Bills are a dangerous team. I just don't know if they make it. If the Bills make it, that to me is the best odds of anyone. I just don't know if they're going to make it. When you have Josh Allen, you're never out of a game. Now, he can take you out of a game, but he can also put you back into a game. When he is on, he is the only guy that can go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. The issue is he has been playing so much hero ball this season, it has hurt them. Their defense is ancient. I mean, I've talked about it. Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, both 32 years old. Tre'Davious White looks 32. He's been banged up, obviously. Matt Milano's been injured a large chunk of the season. It's tough, man. Von Miller's not been good when he's even been out there on the field. It's been a hard season for the Bills. But again, when you look at that team overall, the talent, they're still a dangerous team. I do like the Lions overall. I said that from the get-go. I think the NFC is not quite as deep, although with the Niners kind of separating themselves, it makes it a little more difficult. But I like the Lions, man. When you are that good in the trenches, especially on the offensive line, you always have a shot. You will always have a shot when your offensive line is the best in the NFL.
I think I would go the Bills because I think if the Bills, now the issue with the Bills is they might not get in the playoffs, but if they can sneak into the postseason, I think they're a very, very dangerous team. And it's because the same reason why I've talked about the Bills recently is I still think they're an elite team, but they are a team that everything that could have gone wrong for them in several different games has gone wrong for them. I think they're much, much, much better than their record. Obviously, a lot of defensive issues, but if the Bills can sneak in, I wouldn't be surprised to see if they kind of go on a run. Falcons. Let me make a very quick case for my Falcons. Now, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not going to make that argument.
You and I already have a bet that Falcons have win a playoff game.
And right now, it's going to be they're going to host the Cowboys. Most likely.
You like that
Or
one?
if they don't win the division, a good chance they get a wild card spot, and then they would be the worst wild card team. So then they play either the Eagles or the 49ers probably on the road. I mean, who knows? The Cowboys choke in the playoffs. Maybe we do want to host the Cowboys in the first round. Who knows? I will make a case for Atlanta to win a playoff game here, though. Their defense is legitimately good. They were like an above average defense. Now they're a good defense. And they're good in two very specific key areas, which is why they're able to win some of these games and, beat the Jets by a score 13-8. First in the NFL in third down defense, first in the NFL in red zone defense, second and third down defense. They are keeping teams from getting in the end zone. I think it's like 26 straight drives that they haven't allowed a touchdown on defense. And they're keeping teams from converting third downs into first downs. That's massive. If they can do that against good teams, they'll at least be in the hunt in these games.
Yeah, the issue is they can't score more than 17 points.
Right. They suck offensively. But now Arthur Smith has completely changed their offensive game plan where they don't even really throw the ball. They've ran the ball over their last 3 games 60.73% of the time. That's 7% more than the next closest team.
And they
just run the ball and play defense.
And they're finally using Bijan Robinson, which is obviously who would have thought using a great player would lead to better results. But he's not trying to care about your fantasy football team.
Right. So to answer Justin's question, I think Bijan Robinson will be RB1 in the NFL, like the best running back in the NFL. Possibly.
If McCaffrey retires.
Yeah, if McCaffrey's not there anymore, then certainly. I mean, if the Falcons can play really good defense and run the football effectively, they can get scrappy in games against teams that are much better. So
is Younghoe Koo still their kicker?
Yeah.
And he's a good kicker.
He has right now the best career field goal percentage in the NFL.
Yeah, he's really good.
He surpassed Justin Tucker because Justin Tucker's missed a couple recently. He has like a 90% field goal make rate.
Yeah, Butker's got to be pretty close though too, because Butker was second, and he's been perfect this season. Come on now.
Let me look it up.
Don't go spread misinformation. Not on this show, pal.
No. Number 1, Younghoe Koo, 90.12%. Number 2, Justin Tucker, 89.93%. Number 3, Harrison Butker, 89.42.
I knew it was close.
So there you go. Younghoe Koo as of right now. The only kicker in NFL history to have a percent of over 90%.
Was he with the Chargers for a little bit?
He started with Chargers and he stunk, and they released him after like 3 weeks.
Yeah. I always find it funny when teams do that because they're just sitting there going, "Damn, I wish we had Younghoe Koo back." Just like the Panthers are sitting there going, "Damn, I wish we would have kept Harrison Butker."
There is a trend. I think I read an article or just a tweet about it at the start of the year, but there was a trend of like rookie kickers always being terrible with their first team, getting released, and then becoming good with the second team they signed with. It's like a trend that's like gone on for the past 20 years. Younghoe Koo is an example. Harrison Butker is an example. You can find a decent amount of guys who that works for. So
sure.
Shout out to the Chargers. Thank you for releasing Younghoe Koo. Also, by the way, I was just watching Younghoe Koo. The guy's got swag. He just like walks like around the field, like during warmups and on the sideline during the game. The kid's got swag. All right. Let's preview. We're a little bit behind schedule, so let's rip through these. Preview week 14 games. Thursday Night Football. Is this the worst game of the year, Patriots against Steelers?
No, that was the Falcons versus Jets, and you attended it. But wow, yeah, this is going to be a brutal game.
Obviously no Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky for the Steelers. Who knows for the Patriots? It doesn't matter. Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi are the exact same quarterback. There's no difference between the two. It is the lowest total of the year. So if you're just talking about points, then yes, it's projected to be the worst game of the season. The over-under is set at 30.
Oh, and that seems like it's going to be a struggle to get to.
Oh yeah,
that seems like is this going to be an Iowa football game? This is Iowa versus Louisville.
Yep. So I have no thoughts. I'm going to take the points of the Patriots because I guess I'll take 6 points because it's not going to be a good game. Rams against Ravens, a sneaky good game here. Rams have won 3 straight games since coming off their bye week. All of a sudden in the hunt here for an NFC playoff spot at 6-6. Ravens coming off their bye week in the hunt for the number 1 seed in the AFC. Tied with the Dolphins right now based on tiebreakers. Dolphins would hold the number 1 seed. The two teams play a little bit later in the season, but the Ravens certainly in the mix. 7.5-point favorites at home to the Rams.
That seems like too many points. I like the Ravens in this game. Big fan of the Ravens overall. I think they're a great team, but the Rams are a little sneaky. When you have that many weapons, it makes it hard because you're never out of a game.
Right.
I like the points in this one. I wouldn't. I think that's the way I'd go if I was betting this game. Give me the 7.5 points here.
I'm laying the points of the Ravens. Not super confident though. I know the Rams looked good against the Browns defense last week, but I think they match up a little bit worse stylistically against the Ravens defense, who allow the fewest yards per pass attempt in the NFL. So I'm going to lay the points of the Ravens, but not a super confident play for me. Colts Bengals all of a sudden became an intriguing matchup here. Now 2 teams battling for a playoff spot, a wild card spot in the AFC. The Colts sitting at 7-5, Bengals just outside the playoffs at 6-6. The Colts were 2.5-point favorites before last night. And then after Jake Browning's strong performance, the line has now moved down 1.5 points. Bengals now just 1 point underdog at home to the Colts.
When the Colts play, wild shit happens.
Yes.
Block punts, running into the kicker, like just nuts stuff. They don't play normal games. I like watching the Colts play because every game's entertaining. Gardner Minshew is an absolute joy to watch. And I do think Jake Browning is solid. Again, I know it's a small sample size, but there was nothing that showed me that was unrealistic, right? There was nothing that showed me that, no, he's more like Tim Boyle than he is a legit backup quarterback. I'm excited for this game. I don't know how I'd bet this game, but I'm excited to at least watch this game.
I'm going to take the Colts. Bengals defense is still one of the worst in the NFL. And I just can't, unless they're going to be big time underdogs, I can't just bank on another good Jake Browning performance and bet on the Bengals. Their defense stinks. So I'm going to take the Colts. Bills against Chiefs, an intriguing matchup. Chiefs 2.5-point favorites at home, coming off the loss to the Packers. Bills coming off their bye week. Bills can't really afford to lose this game if they want to make the playoffs. Do the Chiefs bounce back? Do the Bills win? What do you think?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Bills have to have this for their playoff lives, while the Chiefs need to win to have any shot realistically at the 1 seed, right? So there's a lot to play for both teams. The Bills have been pretty good against Kansas City, especially in the regular season, obviously, right? The playoffs have been a little different story, but the regular season, the Bills have been pretty good, even at Arrowhead. But the 2.5 points, give me the Chiefs, right? That's less than a field goal. I think the Chiefs can win by a field goal. I like Kansas City to cover.
I wish I couldn't. I wish I didn't have to bet on this game. I am going to take the Bills and the 2.5 points. Not confident though, but I'm just committed to the Bills. I've lost betting on them a lot this season. I'm committed to them. I think they're better than their record. Offensively, their metrics are better than the Chiefs' offensive metrics in a lot of key areas. Not by a ton, but by a little bit. But then the Chiefs have a big defensive advantage. But Bills coming off the bye week. I don't know. I
love the under. The under is the one that I feel more confident about. 47 points.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. And then Sunday Night Football, big one, Eagles-Cowboys. Everyone should know where I'm going at for this one. Cowboys, I'll lay the points of them -3.5 at home. They deserve to beat the Eagles last time they played. They outplayed them in just about every single metric. Eagles needed about 5 things to go their way to not lose that game, and all 5 of them did. I don't think that's going to be the case now with the Cowboys returning home. And as we talked about earlier, the Eagles defense stinks.
I like the Eagles with the points. That hook is the one I like. I like it, baby. That's a win. 3.5. Cowboys win by 3. That's still a win for the Eagles. And by the way, can you name the good teams the Cowboys have beat this season?
The Seahawks.
No. I said good teams.
That's the best team that they beat this season.
Yeah, That was my point.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not like they've played a ton of good teams either. They played 2 good teams, the 49ers and the Eagles. And
how'd that go?
Got destroyed by the 49ers and the Eagles. Yeah, they lost, but come on. They were the better team in that game.
Okay. We disagree a lot here.
Yes, we do. Huge total in this game. If anyone wants to watch some points being scored, tune in to Sunday Night Football because total is 53. Rough week for our picks last week, Sterling, after you had a stretch there of your red hot. Unfortunately, no wins last week. You went 0-2-1. You pushed on the Chargers -6. I bet that game early in the week, and this will never happen to me as a sports bettor again for the rest of my life. I bet on the Patriots when the line was 6.5. So I won my Patriots bet without them scoring a single point. I won Patriots plus 6.5.
That's absurd.
That will never happen again.
How do I lose with the Patriots scoring 0 points? Like, that is just absurd.
You did push, so it's not technically a loss. It is a push. It'll go on your record as a push.
Felt like a loss.
But still, if you hold your opponent to 0 points, you would hope that they're able to cover the spread. Yeah, I agree. It probably would feel like a loss. And then I lost, my one win of the week. I went 1-2. My one win of the week was 49ers to cover against the Eagles. That was easy. We both lost our total bets. I took the over between the Cardinals and the Steelers. I'll blame that one on Kenny Pickett getting hurt. And you lost, and I was on this bet myself, the under between the Rams and the Browns. I was shocked. That wasn't even close to going under. That went way over. Rams moved the ball all day against the Browns defense. That was shocking.
Yeah.
Neither of us hit an upset pick. I continue to be the worst underdog bettor in NFL history right now.
I thought I said Arizona over Steelers, but I did it not on this show. It was on a different one, and I'm so bummed because I was like, let's go. I called it, and then I looked at the show sheet, and I go, you idiot, Sterling. You didn't even put on this show.
You were very close to hitting the Broncos. You took Broncos over Texans, very close. They had a chance. Russell Wilson threw pick 6 there right at the end. Hold on. Trevor Lawrence news. Jaguars coach Doug Peterson says quarterback, this is breaking. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence has just a high ankle sprain. All other tests coming back clean. Peterson wouldn't put a timetable on Lawrence's recovery, but didn't rule him out for this week and not season ending. That's huge news.
For this week is wild. I know he's a quarterback,
right?
But a high ankle sprain still, that's crazy.
I mean, I would say he misses this week, but still, I mean, the fact that it's not season ending and they'll have him back for the playoffs at least is massive, because it looked like the Jaguars season was over last night.
Yep. Also, what happened to Walker Little? The left tackle went out on the same play, and we never heard word. Like, did he just feel so bad that he's like, I'm pulling myself, fellas? Like, that was crazy to see, because they did not talk about it again on the broadcast.
Yeah, I'm trying to look this up right now. Hamstring injury, but no more details about that. Monitoring his status ahead of week 14. The other thing I actually wanted to bring up about that game, and I tweeted about it last night. Sterling, I don't know if you were actually watching the game last night or not, but
I sure was.
The play before, the water boy came out on the field for the Jaguars, thinking that they had called a timeout. They had not called a timeout, so the Jaguars were forced to call a timeout. And then the very next play, Trevor Lawrence gets hurt. If that water boy doesn't run on the field and then force the Jaguars to call a timeout, Trevor Lawrence doesn't bust up his ankle, and this season is completely different. Now, it looks like he's going to be back, but that water boy must felt like an all-time idiot last night.
Oh, that sucks.
What a twist of fate.
Yeah, that poor guy. I feel bad for the dude.
Yeah. All right, back to our picks here. Yeah, we both lost upset. I took Saints over Lions. You took Broncos over Texans. Both of them had a potential game-winning drive. Neither of them could convert. So picks for this week, starting with our best spread bet. I'm going to take a massive underdog this week, Sterling, and it's going to be one of the two Monday Night Football games. I'm going to take the Titans plus 14, getting 2 touchdowns against the Miami Dolphins, mainly because the Titans, and this kind of relates to what I was talking about with the Falcons earlier, very good in the red zone. Falcons are first red zone defense. Titans are second. They're also 15th, so not bad in third down defense. But for a team to cover a 2-touchdown spread, you got to be able to convert red zone trips to touchdowns instead of field goals. So I actually think the story of this game is going to be the Dolphins' red zone offense, because they have the best red zone offense in the NFL, and they're going up against the second best red zone defense in the Titans. Did the Dolphins win the game? Yes. Can they cover 2 touchdowns? That's a lot against a very well-coached Titans team. I'll take the points with Tennessee.
Hate it. I think the Dolphins roll.
It's going to be a rough one to cheer for. That's for sure.
Yeah,
and it might be over immediately.
It's going to be one of those backdoor covers, right? They're down 21, and all of a sudden you see Will Levis just throw a touchdown late in the game, and all of a sudden it's, oh yeah, look at that, they covered.
Yeah, well,
that's the 14-point spread. That's the glory of it. You can be down 20 and score a garbage time touchdown. Next thing you know, you covered.
Early in the season, I took Panthers plus 14 against the Dolphins, and the Panthers were up 14-0. And I was like, there's no way this bet loses. And then the Dolphins came back and won like 42-17 or something. Like, covered, wasn't even close. Could happen again.
I've already talked about this one. So Eagles plus 3.5 versus Dallas. I think the half point is why. The main reason why I'm taking it. I think the Eagles are still a really good team. I think Dallas has not played well outside of against the Eagles, against any sort of decent team in the NFL. I mean, again, they should have lost to the Seahawks too. And the Seahawks, I think, are just an average team. They don't play well against good teams. So give me the points.
All right, fair enough. Total bet, I'm going to go my favorite over bet, over 43. The under has hit a ton for both of these teams, but I think we've seen an over cash here, because both defenses are some of the worst defenses in the NFL by almost every metric. 28th and 31st in opponent yards per play, 26th and 30th in opponent EPA per play, 29th and 30th in opponent success rate, 20th and 29th in opponent points per game. Any game involving these two bad defenses don't deserve having a total in the low 40s. I'll take the over.
I'm going over with the Colts and the Bengals, over 40.5. Ooh. Yeah, Jake Browning season in full effect. But it's not necessarily just that. It's the fact that the Colts, their defense somehow, I don't understand their defense. Like, at times I think they're decent, but yet they're still giving up like 25 a game.
Right.
Offensively, you're like, I don't think they're great, but yet they're still scoring 25 a game. They just play in these sort of weird games. So give me the over in a weird game with the Bengals and their backup quarterback, and Gardner Minshew, the backup quarterback for the Colts.
Yeah, I do like that one. Upset pick of the week. I think the Buccaneers beat my Falcons, because it would just be very Falcons of them to win 2 straight games, take sole possession of first place in the NFC South, and then lose to the Bucs at home. If the Bucs win, if they beat the Falcons and the Saints beat the Panthers, we have a 3-way tie atop the NFC South at 6-7. It's going to be ugly. My main concern is AJ Terrell. He left the game this past week, didn't return, I believe, is with a concussion. If he can't go, the Falcons' secondary depth is going to be an issue, and now they have to take on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So no AJ Terrell against Mike Evans and Chris Godwin is an issue. And also the Buccaneers have a good run defense. The Falcons have committed to the run. If they can't move the ball on the ground against this team, they're going to struggle to score points if they have to rely on the arm of Desmond Ridder. So I will take the Buccaneers to beat my Falcons.
Yeah, I actually love that one right there. And Rachaad White's been getting way more involved for the Buccaneers. Obviously a very good pass catcher, but he's starting to break open a little more in the run game as well. I like the Raiders over the Vikings. I am a little surprised. I'm a little surprised the Vikings are favored on the road by 3 points. I like the Raiders at home. They're fighting for the playoff lives. They're playing hard for Antonio Pierce. They're not the most talented team by any means, but they do have some weapons. I'll just take the Raiders at home. I like it.
All right, interesting. Don't hate that one at all. So now we'll wrap up the show as always. I hope that we get to stop doing this segment soon because once again, I'm going to be broke if you keep winning. Your survivor pool, you are still somehow all the way to week 14. I wish you had joined like an actual like big money survivor pool. Like you'd be down to like the last few. You have chosen the teams you cannot choose this week include, and this has turned into a very long list, the Commanders, the Bills, the Dolphins, the 49ers, the Lions, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Chargers, the Saints, the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Chiefs, the Buccaneers, and that's it. Buccaneers gave you a little bit of a scare this past week.
They sure did. I was not confident in that game, but there were not a lot of games to choose from last week.
Yep.
I still have the Bengals to use, but I'm not using them now with no Joe Burrow. I still have the Ravens to use, but I'm deciding on them. Still have the Eagles to use, but the Eagles have had such a brutal stretch. I haven't used them yet. I think I'm going with Houston. I think I'm going to go with Houston.
Houston against the Jets.
Yeah.
Probably a good pick because the Jets offense is the worst in the NFL.
Yeah. And so I the Rams and the Ravens, I could take the Ravens there, but the Rams scare me more than the Jets do, right?
Yeah.
I think the Ravens are a much better team than Houston, but the Jets can't score. You score 13 points, I think you win that game. I think CJ Stroud in that offense scores at least 13 points. So I'll roll with Houston.
All right. I think that's completely fair. I think that's a good pick. The Jets kept the Falcons to 13 points and still didn't cover the spread or even come close to beating them. So, yeah, I mean, the Texans might just need to score 10 points. They're going to beat the Jets. There you have it. That's our show. Final thoughts?
I feel a little bad. Like it's Christmas time and you're now having to not give presents to your significant others, your parents. You're giving it to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, to be fair, maybe I might not have to buy this gift until after Christmas because I think the last week of the season's in January. So
there you go.
The Christmas money I get from my family will then be used towards buying you a gift.
Yeah, you're gonna have to have some stipulations where you got to get all the way to the Super Bowl now too.
Right.
You got to get it.
Yeah. All right. That is our show. Thank you everyone for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the Stacking the Box YouTube channel. Like this video. Go sign up for Sleeper Daily Fantasy. You get a new users get a first deposit match up to $100. Use the code FANSIDED2. That is FANSIDED and then the number 2 when signing up to receive your deposit match at Sleeper Daily Fantasy. Follow me on Twitter at Iain MacBets, IAIN MacBets. Follow Sterling at HomestretchKC. Good luck if you decide to play some bets this weekend. And regardless, enjoy the games. We'll talk to you next week for week 15 of the NFL season.